Hey everybody, it's Bobby Martinez from your 914 D class. Anyway, I'm here today to talk about the Common Core English Language Arts Standards. So come with me on this journey as I take you through some of the highlights of the standards. All right, so first we've got the introduction. The drop page here, the landing page. Common Core asks students to read stories and literature, as well as more complex texts that provide facts, background knowledge in areas such as science and social studies. Um, Students will be challenged to ask questions that push them to refer back to what they've read. This stresses critical thinking, problem solving, analytical skills required for success in college, career, and life. This whole mission statement here is kind of gearing us towards the 21st century, both on the teacher end and that we are all English teachers, no matter what we're teaching now, history, social studies, science, and technical subjects, whatever it is that we're teaching, we are now English teachers in that we have to teach critical analysis, thought process, rhetoric, and communication skills as applied to every subject. It's an interdisciplinary focus that's a lot different that I think than when I was a lot younger and going to school. It was kind of very subdivided into subsections. But anyway, it's a nice mission statement to get us started out. So introduction, key design. So these are standards that we have to instill in the youth and all the subjects to get them ready for graduation. And eventual entry into college or preparatory stuff. So it's divided into K through 8 and 9, 10, 11, 12. Focus on results rather than means. So standards are working towards achievement levels and reflections that involves reflection. And that teaches them how to think as well as what they're actually thinking and learning about too. It's a metacognitive thinking about thinking. So we're teaching them how to think as well as what to learn. The focus is on reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Speaking, I think, is an interesting thing that I never really thought about much before, just because I'm a native English speaker, but speaking is a huge part of the cognitive process of writing, reading, and listening, because that's how you intake and export language. Researching media skills blend into the standards as a whole. Research, being able to discern good information from bad information, bias, when rhetoric is being used. That's a huge thing that I think a lot of students are missing now. They just take for granted what is given to them without considering the sources and who is saying it and why they might be saying it. So anyway, there's a lot more information on this, but for the sake of time, one more thing I wanted to call out. The standards also talk about what they're not, which I thought was an interesting feature. There's a few things in here that I thought there might be interesting. It's not a comprehensive list. They do not describe all that can or should be taught. There's a lot as lots of things to think of. A lot of things to think about as far as what should be taught, but since we don't have time to teach everything all the time, there is give the standards kind of form a framework for getting the most out of what we do decide to teach, which I thought was kind of cool. So anyway, we're going back up, talk about the anchor standards really quick. We've got a few more subsections in here on the introduction. College, career, reading and writing. These are kind of benchmarks for what a student should be able to do and how they should be able to function in their academics for college and career. A little guide on how to read the standards, the organization schemes for how they go. Anchor standards are for college and career readiness. All of the standards, they're broken into these subsections: key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, and range of reading and text complexity. So there's some little subsections here, what you're supposed to be able to do with key ideas and details, read closely, determine central ideas, analyze how and why, craft and structure, being able to interpret words and phrases, analyze structure, assess point of view and context, integration of knowledge and ideas, integrate and evaluate. So these are all language functions that they should be able to perform to different levels, and the standards in each subject in each area are broken up in these categories: craft, structure, integration, knowledge, ideas. And then range of reading and text complexity. I find this section here very useful, just because with such a huge range of things for us to be able to hit while we're teaching, it's nice to have a little bit of focus to the huge libraries of information that we have at our disposal to give to them. So let's head down to reading and literature. I am currently teaching ninth grade English Advanced, so I'm going to start with ninth grade English Advanced. It gives a first standards in the Strand. And so again, it's broken down into always these 4 pillars for every grade level. So for key ideas and details, ninth graders need to be able to cite strong textual evidence, determine theme or central idea of a text, analyze complex characters with conflicting motivation. Now keep in mind, this is literature, not nonfiction, so this is stories and narrative. So in this level, they're supposed to be able to cite evidence to defend their positions, pull out a main idea, analyze complex characters that have multiple motivations or conflicting motivations, craft and structure, meanings, words, and phrases, figurative and connotative meanings. So getting into the beginnings of more dimensioned language, analyze how authors' choices concerning text, manipulate time, parallel plots. So the structure, the actual framework of narratives, how all the authors play with those different conventions, and analyze the particular point of view of cultural experience. So this is also reflection of the range and of reading and text complexity, because when we get ranges of text from other countries that have different syntax and are translated from different languages, you get different levels of text complexity. So these two kind of work hand in hand. And then here, integration of knowledge and ideas, analyze representation of a scene. So symbolism in both word and scene and function. And then transform materials of a specific work, how the intertextuality of different authors, how their texts relate to each other. Sometimes you'll see here in the standards that these are not applicable to literature, but they might be for other disciplines. Range of reading, text complexity, stories and dramas, poetry. I remember that being a huge focus when I was in ninth grade, so I'm not surprised to see it here. And then by the end of 10th grade, be able to analyze all those independently. So there's a progression here that's highlighted in many of the grade bands that are called out. So they have, again, ninth grade reading. So that was for the literature. This is for informational text. So this is nonfiction. So many of these, I was kind of surprised, but also comforted in a way to see that many of the standards between informational literature writing, a lot of them overlap. So strong textual evidence, central idea, that's reflected in the literature as well, but now we're just applying it to nonfiction. Analyze, of course, what we're analyzing in nonfiction is a little different, or informational text. So point order, connections between points are a little more important here. Again, determining meaning, word, and phrases, analyze how authors' claims are developed. So we're doing argumentative analysis and analyze point of view. So a lot of the same standards apply, just different content that we're analyzing. Seminal U.S. documents, so there's a little bit of prescription as far as what specifically we are supposed to be teaching, which I found to be oddly specific for the kind of general, the generalized version of these standards that's been addressed so far. This was a little bit out of place to me, it seems. And again, the range of reading text complexity gives a prescription. So That's basically the way it's broken down for all of these different foundational skills. This is for grades 1 to 5, so this is more the nuts and bolts of grammar and vocabulary. Um, Writing, again, standards coming through ninth to 10th grade. Now we have a new rubric here: text types and purpose for writing. Um, so claims and counterclaims, words and phrases to link major sections of the text. So now we're getting into the form and functionality of academic writing and academic language, as far as constructing arguments, evaluating arguments, creating counterclaims, um, writing to a form, MLA format, these kinds of things. Write informative explanatory text to convey complex ideas. So then we have a set of standards to fill that category. Domain-specific vocabulary. So I thought this is a very important one to have in, because they can't access the knowledge of the concept until they have the means of to do so, which is through the words that they need to be able to have with the discourse. So that's the language demands versus the language function. They need to have to be ability to use the syntax and the vocabulary to manage, as it says here, the complexity of the topic. Also, there's more here: writing narratives to develop real or imagined experiences. So here we're in the creation mode of writing their own fiction or creative writing. So I see a lot of these. I've taught creative writing, so I see many of these standards is what I participated in when I was teaching that. And production and distribution of writing. So the process. Strength in writing is needed by planning, revising, editing. So this is a huge thing that I think gets overlooked a lot of time, because there's a whole schematic set of schematics revolved around planning, revising, editing, rewriting. They kind of just take it for granted and think like, well, the majority of the work is just the writing. But this is a huge part that I think needs maybe a little more emphasis, more multi-step here than actually what's actually displayed here in the standards. They kind of did a catch-all here. Of course, with a 21st century focus for college and career, using technology should be, I think this should be in every one of them, honestly. I think that using technology for multimedia presentation should be in way more of the standards list here. Research to build and present knowledge, and then range of writing. Routinely over extended time frames. So we're doing long timed writes and we're doing shorter quick writes, which I thought was a very excellent addition. And we've got up here speaking and listening standards. So comprehension and collaboration. This is group work. These are kind of the standards for how students should interact both with the teacher and peers during class to accomplish tasks and complete assignments. Integrating multiple sources, responding to diverse perspectives, leading discussions, working with peers to do group work, to delegate and accomplish goals by deadlines. Presentations in groups with clear, concise language that's easy to follow. Again, digital media, I think this should be everywhere. I think it should be everywhere all the time, because that's the way that we interact with the world now. And then language, we've got 9 and 10. So conventions of standard English. So this is kind of a catch-all for grammar, which I like they have their own separate section here, but I feel like this should be a little bit more of an emphasis with a few more bullet points in here, just because in my experience there's a lot of room for improvement in this area when it comes to all the grades that I've taught previously. I've taught 5th and 7th, and I feel like there needs to be a little bit more here. I feel like this should be more of a priority because so many students just don't have a grasp on it. Vocabulary acquisition, of course, the vocabs, the keys to the kingdom. So I feel like this should be higher up in the list of stuff that they should be able to do. I feel like this should be the beginning of the standards for ELA. Maybe that's just the traditionalist to me. Anyway, and then range of quality and text complexity. So 3 factors for text complexity. These are just ways we measure. Qualitative, that's just the level, the type of topics that are inherent here. Anyway, hope you enjoy my presentation and looking forward to going through